In 1980, at the age of 24, Veronica Compton found herself completely under the spell of one of the most notorious serial killers in U.S. history, Hillside Strangler, Kenneth Bianchi. While researching her screenplay, she began a relationship with Bianchi that would lead her to a tragically dark and violent place in her life. I'm Joy Krause, and I've spent over a decade trying to understand why any woman would seek a relationship with a monster like the Hillside Strangler. What I've learned is there's no one type of woman or one type of reason. It could be a belief in his innocence, or the possibility of his redemption, or just as easily, their psychic said he was their soulmate. The articles I read about Veronica Compton were pretty brutal. Most headlines referred to her as some version of batshit crazy. But when I met Veronica after her prison release, I discovered that she wasn't batty or crazy when she met Bianchi. At the time, she was an aspiring writer, and all she wanted, as you will hear next, was a little teeny-weeny bit of advice about her screenplay, whose main character, coincidentally, was a killer.
I said, I need to have a conversation with a real serial killer. At the time, the Hillside Strangler had come into the Los Angeles arena. Make a long story short, I went out to interview him in preparation for my script. I had him read my script to see whether or not it made sense to him.
Veronica's first jailhouse visit to meet Bianchi ignited a love affair that culminated with Veronica attempting a Hillside Strangler-style copycat murder, and ultimately with her spending 23 years in prison. I asked Veronica how that one innocent visit became a journey into a tangled web of infatuation and obsession.
And now remember, I'm all alone in the world at this point. I'm not seeing my family every day like I was.
So she's all alone, and she starts visiting this guy every day? You might be thinking, as many people did, this chick's nuttier than a fruitcake. Well, maybe so. But then again, maybe not. Stay with me here. I know the serial killer angle may be throwing you off, but let's take a look at another possibility, one that we may all relate to. I'm Joy Krause, and welcome to this episode of Killer Love Hacks, where we're about to explore the potential impact of being alone and its slippery sidekick, loneliness. Oh, that word. Lonely. Even saying it is tough, right? Admitting it can be even tougher. Oh, I've been there more times than I'd like to count. The loneliness, the vulnerability, that ache for someone's company. And just like Veronica, sometimes anyone's company. How about you? Has loneliness ever come knocking at your door? If so, join the club. There are a lot of us out here, young, old, and everyone in between, in epidemic numbers. And loneliness is killing us mentally and physically. So what can we do to kick loneliness to the curb? That's our quest in this episode. Come on along with me for a ride filled with insights, camaraderie, and a few surprise killer love hacks to tackle this unwelcomed guest and to turn things around. Joining us on our ride are others who know a thing or two about loneliness, such as Veronica Compton, Eleanor Rigby, Father Mackenzie, and others. Are you ready? Come on, let the ride begin. So first of all, is there a difference between being alone and loneliness? You betcha. Sometimes we crave an escape into being alone, a break from the noise of the world. The sounds we hear during those chosen times of solitude are gentler, softer. Like the pages of a book turning in a quiet room, the soothing rustle of leaves during a solo stroll through the woods, the hushed rhythm of a porch's rocking chair. Oh, can you feel it? Can you hear it? And then there's loneliness. Oh, that has a sound all its own, and it can be deafening. The tick, tick, ticking of the clock. The echo of someone else's distant laughter. The muffled sounds of traffic outside with people coming and going. Paul McCartney's Eleanor Rigby heard those sounds as she waits at the window with her face in a jar by the door, as did her counterpart, Father Mackenzie, who wrote sermons that no one could hear. Veronica Compton, Eleanor Rigby, and Father Mackenzie silently speak for a lot of us in today's world, with their ache for human connection and a genuine bonding with a real person. As a young woman, Veronica was alone in the world for the first time in her life. She talked about how that influenced her desire for Ken Bianchi's friendship when she shared this.
So you feel the common bond. We all want to bond with another human being. That's human nature. I visited him almost every day in the LA County Men's Jail. I was the only visitor he was allowed to have. Yeah, it was pretty intense. And I would visit him for hours and hours each visit, to the point where he was consuming my entire life.
All the lonely people, where do we all come from? Apparently, we come from everywhere, and no one is immune. Now picture this from a different scenario involving social media. You're 21 years old. You have 5 million Instagram followers, an apartment in Hollywood, and seemingly an enviously famous life. And yet, this social media star, Nate Garner, said, quote, "Social media has made me become a loner in the real world," close quote. Or how about Lady Gaga? The Lady Gaga, from her 2017 Netflix documentary, when she said, quote, "I'm alone every night, and all these people will leave, right? They will leave, and then I'll be alone," closed quote. Or the feelings of a recently retired 60-year-old schoolteacher from Miami, Florida, who missed her former colleagues and realized, quote, "I'm like, oh my God, they go home, and they go home to families, and I go home to 4 cats." Ever had that moment when loneliness strolled into your life, not giving a hoot about whether you're juggling textbooks or retirement plans? Yeah, that's the tricky thing about loneliness. It's an equal opportunity companion. It does not discriminate. And loneliness is everywhere, from lively city streets to tranquil countryside corners. It's a universal, unwelcomed traveler in our journey through life. Veronica Compton's loneliness journey led her to Kenneth Bianchi, the Hillside Strangler. For a few months, he was her sole companion. She trusted him. She believed him. She began to love him. And she never saw the evil plot that was unfolding.
And he cried, and he looked like a little angel to me. I mean, he did. He had this little child face. When he told me he was going to be murdered by Angela Bono, he literally is like this at the window, crying tears with his hands like this. A week before my crime, he asked me, he said, this is what he said: "I'm going to be killed soon, and I love you more than anything I've ever loved in my life, Veronica. But I'm sorry, I'll never be able to see you again. They're going to move me to a prison, and Angela Bono has put a contract on me, and where they're moving me, they're going to murder me. Just know that you've given me the most joy I've ever had in my life." And in my deluded state of mind and stupidly trusting him, I believed him. And I said, well, what can I do? And that was when he came out with this plot. The plot was, if I replicated his crimes, they would then release him because they would say the real serial killer was on the loose.
Man, loneliness can trip us up sometimes because it hurts our hearts so much. Chances are pretty good that you won't be cozying up with a death row inmate. But have you ever wanted a connection with someone so badly that you stumbled into a companion who, in the end, brought you more chaos than comfort? It's kind of like searching for the warmth of a cozy fireplace, but instead tripping into a bonfire. I'm raising my hand here because I've been burned more than once. Okay, a lot more than once. So if you're raising your hand too, I totally get it. And so did Hank Williams, who was so lonely he could cry. It seems that a lot of people are raising their hands. According to U.S. Surgeon General Vivek McMurthy, nearly 50% of U.S. adults are living with measurable amounts of loneliness. Veronica Compton was one of the 50%, and she filled her days with the company of a man behind bars. She believed Ken Bianchi was innocent. She believed he loved her. She believed she was the only person who could prove his innocence. So she attempted a copycat murder to prove to authorities that the real killer was still on the loose out there. So she went looking for a victim. In a bar in Bellingham, Washington, she found what she thought someone who was the perfect target. 26-year-old Kim Breed. They struck up a conversation, and eventually she lured Miss Breed to a motel room. There, she attempted to strangle her, but Miss Breed survived. Veronica was arrested for attempted murder, and she spent the next 23 years in prison. When I interviewed Veronica 1 year after her release, she said,
I committed the crime. And this is the truth. And I've waited, 30 years to say it, so.
She did the crime, and she served her time. It's astonishing to reflect on how her life's course was shaped by moments of loneliness and vulnerability. And it's kind of wild when you think that almost all of us have hit lonely patches in our life, right? Or maybe we're there right now. It is comforting to know that we're not alone in this, not by a long shot. We're not broken. We're just human, riding the roller coaster of life. So we might stumble into a few not-so-great relationships to patch up that lonely space. But hey, let's cut ourselves some slack here, my friend. We're all just doing the best we can with what we know and feel in the moment. Shaking off that loneliness can seem a bit overwhelming. Is there some secret sauce or tiny first step that holds the key? What if it's as simple as shooting a text to someone you kinda know, or joining a club with folks who get excited about your same stuff, or maybe giving volunteering a shot, or hey, how about just rediscovering an old hobby? And you know what's awesome? All these ideas share a secret sauce. They're stirred with the magic of connecting with other people. But here's the twist. It's not just about linking up with anybody. It's about connecting with the right kind of folks for us. And Veronica figured that out after spending over 10 years behind bars. One day, she received a letter from a high-profile university professor who sought her opinion about a prison reform project he was working on. They began corresponding, and one day, he strolled into the Washington Correctional Center for Women to meet Veronica, the lady who would one day become his wife. Veronica Compton discovered the game changer for breaking free from the lonely blues, engaging with and connecting with kindred spirits. So here you have it. Meaningful connections. Yep, that is the unbeatable killer love hack. I'm Joy Krause. Thanks for listening to this episode of Killer Love Hacks, revealing a relationship love hack often used and definitely abused by serial killers. Companionship. Well, I absolutely love hanging out together, and I can't wait to share the next story with you. It's about the baseline killer, Mark Godot, and his beautiful wife, Wendy. We'll unravel a relationship love hack that has kept their love alive even while Mark is on death row. So get ready for their incredible story in our upcoming episode entitled Tickle Your Love Life, The Power of Playfulness. So saddle up and hold on tight as we embark on another wild ride over the hills and through the valleys of love. I am Joy Krause, and that wraps up another intriguing case at Killer Love Hacks. If you're itching for more clues on the mysterious ways of love, don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or right from our Love Detective headquarters at killerlovehacks.com, so you'll never miss a case. Subscribe, leave a review, and help us spread the word by sharing the podcast with your true crime love detective buddies. Until next time, keep your heart open and your eyes peeled. Who knows where the next clue will lead? Happy sleuthing, Killer Love Hackers!